Hey, Michelle, it's April of 2021. We're going to look at March of 2021. Get the whole thing right. Santa Clara County. Let's dive in.
Yeah, that wasn't confusing. Yes, March of 2021. We're going to take a look back. We're going to try to answer three questions that you might have heard out there. And so one, I don't think we can get away with doing these without talking about prices.
Nope,
Mark,
not
that's
anymore.
pretty critical. And then also just new listings, right? So we're going to talk about some of the problems with the March data, right? And
Okay.
how we can go about that. And then the competitiveness. We keep hearing about it, just really competitive. We'll talk about sale to list price
Okay.
ratio.
And we're going to give them a new treat, a new visual down the way. Just shh, don't tell them.
Don't ruin it. No,
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
ruin it. No, let's start off.
1.6 million. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's a new all-time high. I mean, if you look at the price appreciation over the last 2 months, it's been pretty astounding, right? 1.375 to 1.6. So, I mean, that's an 8% jump over last month. It's a 14% increase year over year. It's definitely, surpassing what we saw in the 2018 timeframe, right? So it's been a couple of years since we've seen anything like this, and it's a pretty significant jump in Santa Clara County. Now, this is single-family homes. And it depends on where you are, right? We have an entire slide. We had to kind of smush it in there because we saw year-over-year price increases in most cities in Santa Clara County. And so you can see here some, 8% or less, but we see some big ones. And that's like, look at that Monte Sereno, right? So bigger properties. San Martin always has few sales, but in general, we're just seeing
Across the
quite a
board.
bit.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
looking down there
and
in
San
Palo
Martin, by the
Alto.
way, San Martin, by the way, for sales, right? So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So
I'm looking
it's
at Palo
legitimate.
Alto
It's
going,
just,
it had room to grow. Palo Alto had room to grow.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
and 35 sales, right? So that's quite a bit. Median price up over 11%, almost 1% month over month. So even, just some momentum, even
Okay.
marginally. I mean, this is a lot. We're going to see a lot of these in the sale to list price ratio list again. So hang on. We're just seeing a lot of value. And the only two cities where it decreased was Los Altos Hills and Mountain View. So
Two.
that means,
Two.
right, that,
Okay.
yeah. So that means that a year ago, these cities were actually better in March, even though it wasn't even a complete month. We'll talk about that here in a second.
Right.
Los Altos Hills, though, coming off an all-time high a month ago. So,
Okay.
It depends. But we also saw a higher premium, spoiler alert. So, I don't think these are faring too badly. Mountain View marginally down year over year. And so, some people are going to say, I don't want to compare it to a year ago. Michelle, hello, there was a pandemic. What are you doing? And I'll say, okay, well then let's look month over month. Because
Yeah.
if you want to see momentum, and maybe you're more interested for your clients who are out there right now looking, buying, selling, well, here you see when you look month over month, you do see a little bit more of that list get negative where you're seeing, even a month-to-month decline, not by much. And we're seeing the upside be pretty positive, right? So look at that, Gilroy, over $1 million. So everything in Santa Clara County in March, over $1 million.
Okay.
So really, really tough on the buyers, but really great for your sellers. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And even in the common interest, right? So I did break up this list, so we'll see the list of common interests that did decrease.
Okay.
But these are the increases. So that means condos and townhomes where March of 2021 had a higher price than March of 2020. And here we see a pretty strong rebound. The common interest market had a kind of a tough 2020, right? So this is starting to see some positive change. The county's at 877,000, fourth straight months of increase and highest we've seen since June of 2019, right? So in general, the market's moving up. There were some cities, as you see here, that did decrease year over year. So that's just March this year not being as great as last year, but still a lot of value.
And some of that could just be what was the inventory that was available during March.
Yeah, and that's a great segue, right, into new listings because, if people are talking about these really high prices in Santa Clara County, the only thing that can really put some downward pressure on those prices is new listings, right? Inventory, choice. And we're really excited. March had more new listings than any single month last year, right? So this is a big month in terms of new listings. So your buyers do have some choice. Whether that's enough to move the needle, hard to say, but at least there's a little bit more for them to look at.
Correct.
For sure. And here's where we get into, you mentioned the problem, and we've been talking about this. We knew this was coming. The concern is, Mark, that a year ago was only really a half a month, and new listings is the most affected, the stat that's most affected by what happened last March. So we saw TFTs, withdrawals go through the roof. So it really was like a half month. So the percentages, that right-hand column, don't pay so much attention to that. The percent change is pretty irrelevant. What you want to look at is new listings this year, because that tells you a lot about where there is choice for your buyers.
Where we're going. So yes, this is an apples to orange comparison right here.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. I did want to bring something though, because that current number is still important. Here I'm switching to new listings for the common interest market, right? And you can see, isn't it interesting? Santa Clara and Morgan Hill actually had fewer new listings in the entire month of 2021 March than in half of 2020 March.
Right.
So it wasn't an across-the-board sweep. We said this about San Mateo County too. But in general, yes, we're seeing a lot of increase. And what I recommend, because the next 6 to 8 weeks, maybe even 10, depending on how you look at new listings, but certainly for a couple of months, it's going to be a little challenging with new listings. So I recommend the Aculus Weekly, provided every Tuesday by week, compared to 2020 and 2019, because we recognize 2020 is not the best comparison. So 2019 as well. And you can see here that while we're certainly much better off than 2020 in terms of new listings, we're still even better off than 2019 week by week for, by quite a few homes. So if you have those buyers and sellers that are in the hunt right now, this might be a better way of showing them some real pertinent, up to the minute, up to the day, up to the week data.
Right. And it's going to be this way, right? Maybe for like 60 days, maybe we pay more attention to the weekly chart than we do to the year over year, because the year over year is going to be sort of an apples to an orange comparison.
Yeah, not going to be super helpful. I would say, we didn't see things kind of regulate until like the latter part of May or June.
Right.
So yeah, for a while, I would suggest the weeklies for sure. It's going to be your only source there. And we also have closed sales and pending, right? So we're capturing several things on those weeklies by county too. So that's what I would say. In terms of March, and getting back to kind of just the strength of March 2021, it's the sale to list price ratio, right? So this is a 2-year trend because we wanted you to see kind of a longer look. We haven't seen numbers like this since March of 2020 when we got walked out of the buildings. It was just up and up and up. We saw it decline, and it's been a pretty much steady increase since June of last year. So this is a 2+ year high, along with those really high prices, right? So that's telling you something, what's happening in Santa Clara County. If you look by city, look at that, everything well over 100%. And we're seeing some of those larger numbers. So this means March of this year, higher sale to list price ratio, right? You're paying a little more over ask this year than last year. And so, like Los Altos Hills, right, was one of those that was decreasing, if I remember correctly. You see it here. Saratoga, 110. I think that's
strong.
A real high since 109 in May of 2018. Morgan Hill again. So we're just seeing, it's
2018
really
was the biggest year we ever had.
Right. So
and so we're over that.
Yeah, and it's competitive. And even where you see declines, look at that, even Monte Sereno. So some of those luxury markets at 100%. So even though they weren't as high as a year ago, they're still real. This is tough news for your buyers because there's that price and then there's this double whammy. And so this helps you set expectations for both your buyers and your sellers in terms of what's really happening out there. And it's tough. As we transition to sale to list price, a lot too in the common interest market. So starting to perk up, county at 103. That's a match of March of 2020. So, we're getting back to those pre-pandemic kind of levels. We haven't seen that since July of 2020, right? So, starting to perk up. We see Campbell, Morgan Hill, Milpitas starting to make some moves. So there's some real challenges for Los Gatos, Mountain View, Saratoga, but this is common interest, remember, and maybe just not as good as a year ago. So it's hard to say, but in general, Mark, they're going to pay kind of a higher price. You're going to have a sale to list price ratio that's up there. You have a little bit more choice, but the market's moving quick, days on market, closed sales are ramping up. It's that time of year. So we'll be back in May to talk about April data. and all we can do is keep our eye on it.
Exactly. So, Michelle, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. We'll see you there in May.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye now.
Make sure to check out our Pro Support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.